everyone, my name is Jessie and I have a nail art channel called Nailed@NZ. This video is not about nail art though, but if you would like to watch some nail art, check out these videos here. This video is about some pretty severe anxiety. Well, for me it was severe. I experienced back in 2011, 2012, and you know, a bit on after that as well, but basically I kicked its butt. And anxiety no longer dictates anything I do in my life, and this is the thing I am proudest of in my entire life because it was really hard, but I did it. So today I'm going to tell you all about my experience. I just wanted to say as a disclaimer though, I do not intend to say this is the only way you can do it. This is just my way of doing it. If you're having issues with how you're feeling and that, go talk to a doctor or a psychologist or a counsellor. YouTube videos, they might help, they might not, but this is just my story and I hope that you guys find it useful in some way. If it helps one person, that is so worth it for me. So thank you for watching, please subscribe and thumbs up, and I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so I've got this big list of things I wanted to talk about, so I'm just going to go through it. My anxiety started 6 months after quite a traumatic time in my life. I won't go into details, but I guess sometimes you get away with not having any long-term repercussions from crappy times, but for me I didn't get away with it that time. So this is back in 2010, November 2010, this whole drama started. One day I was walking down the supermarket aisle when I was going supermarket shopping, and it was like the aisles were closing in on me and they were getting longer, and I'm suddenly sweating and I'm just stressing out like crazy, my heart's beating really fast. I could hear every single noise around me, I could feel everything, I could feel the temperature rising, and this was basically a panic attack, and for me the worst part about it is that I went bright red. And if you look at my skin, I'm kind of translucent. I'm not any other skin colour, I'm just translucent. So I don't just go a little bit cute rosy cheeks, you know, I go bright red. Hello, there's a tomato in the room. So that was humiliating. And it happened minorly a few times before that, but I hadn't really been like worried. But this just changed everything. I ran to the toilets and hid in there for a bit until I sort of calmed myself down. And then we kept shopping. I separated out from my husband. He was off over there doing something else and I was getting the milk or something. And I went and met up with him. And then we bumped into this girl who we both knew. And it happened again. And I'm so sorry, Brianna, this was not about you. But I just lost it again and I went bright red, and because I was like, what the hell is happening to me? I was trying to hide and look away and walk away, and I probably looked so rude. But I was just like losing it. I felt like I was going crazy. So I made it through the shopping trip, got in the car and was like, what on earth is happening to me? And for the next 4 days, my life was kind of hell and I thought my life was over because I was blushing at everything. I would be brushing my hair and I'd have a panic attack. I would be sitting at a table eating dinner with Chris and I would be bright red. I would be watching a movie and I would lose it. You know, it was just constant and I had no control whatsoever. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to have a job interview, never going to be able to like work properly and stuff like that because I can't control this. And people comment on it, you know, because I can notice that my face is bright red. And it just makes it worse. After 4 days, one of my friends came over to help me with an assignment. Well, we were both doing the same paper and he helped me out. So yeah, my friend Lindsay came over and it actually really helped. He kind of pushed me back into reality a little bit, just seeing someone outside my immediate like flat and stuff. So I thought after that, oh, it's just a 4-day thing, it's done, it was just a weird thing that happened, that's not happening anymore. But it wasn't over. At the worst of it, like the very worst of it, where my life had just stopped, was over. However, I was yet to discover that I had many triggers that brought back, sorry my phone's going off, brought back the same feelings. And I've got a list here of my triggers. There's quite a few and I've probably missed a few because it has been a long time and I have forgotten most of them, to be honest. But I hated white rooms, fluorescent lights, doctors in general were a terrifying thing. Tables, queues lining up at the supermarket or lining up in a shop. Going to Subway, that was a major thing. Some people, like my mum, was a massive trigger for me, sorry mum. Supermarkets were a major one, obviously, because it started in a supermarket, and just to make matters worse, I worked in a supermarket at the time, so that was fantastic. Sitting at desks and being in class in general was really, really scary for me. Buses were, you know, crazy and crowded and loud. Having attention on me in any way, shape or form. At shops, paying, talking to the cashiers, that was very, very scary for me, and matched up with the queues and the bright lights and everything. So lots of things, probably a lot more too. Almost anything triggered me, anything in public triggered me a lot. So I just basically avoided a lot of these issues, these triggers, to try to make myself not feel like crap, because walking around the place feeling like I can't handle life wasn't great. Whereas if I avoided those triggers, I wouldn't feel as bad, you know. I just wouldn't go. I'd make Chris go, my husband, go and get the groceries, and I'd stay in the car and stuff like that. So this was how I dealt with it for a while. So some attacks were big, some were small. Sometimes it'd just be like a minor sort of freak out, but I could get control over it sometimes. Other times I would just completely lose it and cry afterwards. Yeah, so it was a constant state of fear. 5 months in, I had barely told anyone about this. I was very embarrassed. I thought that I was broken somehow. But 5 months in, my parents came around. I'm not sure if I purposely planned this, but anyway, I ended up telling them. I was like, don't tell anyone, this is so embarrassing, and I'll fix it somehow, you know. I don't know what to do, but I'll fix it. And of course the next day my bloody dad goes and tells somebody about it, which I was very annoyed about at the time, but actually it was the best thing for me, because I did need to talk to people. I did need to learn how I could work this out, how I could fix this, or at least make it more manageable, you know. And he had dinner the next night with some family friends, and the dad was a psychologist, and he told him about it. And so over the next few months I talked to this psychologist guy, Don, twice. The first time nothing really clicked too much, but it helped a little bit. And the second time he said something that really, really helped me. Chris was there too. And he realised that I'd been making Chris do lots of stuff. Chris was paying at checkouts, Chris was getting groceries, and I'd either like hang around behind him behind the checkouts and stuff, or else just not even go in. And he was like, stop that, stop doing that, stop avoiding everything. Chris thought he was being lovely, you know, and I thought he was being lovely by helping me out, by paying when I didn't want to, and by doing things for me and avoiding things for me, and basically enabling me. But I was just saying no to life, to everything. Every time I was scared, I was running away. And every time I ran away, my anxiety got worse. And this was something I could grasp, you know. I was like, okay, so every time I say no, anxiety is winning. But when I say yes, whether I freak out and have a panic attack or not, I am putting myself first and my life first, and I'm giving myself a chance. If something scared me, that was the reason I had to do it. And it was terrifying. And I remember on the way home from that second visit, we went to the takeaway shop or something, and I went and I paid. And I was scared, but I did it, and the world didn't fall apart, and I don't think I even blushed. So that was great. And I was like, okay, cool. Not every time worked like that. Sometimes I'll go to the supermarket and pay and blush and make a complete embarrassment of myself and maybe cry, but I really had to make sure I kept doing it. There were some times that I wouldn't do it, that I would say no, and I had to make sure this was quite infrequent, otherwise it would just make my anxiety worse. But sometimes I did give myself a break and being like, nah, too much else is going on right now. This time I'll let Chris pay. But for the most part I did try my very hardest to always challenge myself and push myself, because I wanted this thing gone, you know. It was just so controlling. So I also went to the doctors. This wasn't as successful as I hoped. At the time I was quite anti getting anything that would actually change, or like, I don't even know what you call it, but antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication that would actually change who I was in any degree or something. I wanted to be able to do it all in my own head, but that is quite naive thinking, to be honest. I now believe that do whatever the hell makes you better. Your life is short, make it worthwhile. Don't spend your whole life being stubborn about getting medication because you think you're better than that. Like, I mean, there's a ton of different opinions on this, but for me, if something like this happened again to me, I would not hesitate to give myself some sort of medication to help me through. Like, there's no shame in making yourself happier or better or less nervous or whatever. You've got to function. I kind of wanted to see if there was something I could get just to help stop the physical symptom of having a bright red face and like chest and arms and everything. But I don't know, I don't think there's really something out there. They gave me one thing for it but didn't really do anything. Yeah, so from then on I just stayed in queues. If I was terrified I would just, right, I'm staying. And I would be blushing half the time and I would be near tears sometimes. But I stayed. It was so irrational, of course, being scared of being in a queue or ordering something, but it was still a very real fear to me. And it was horrible. Now, I'm just going to jump in now with some coping techniques, because while this kind of works in the long run, well, it worked for me in the long run, sometimes you need something to help you get a bit better on the day. For me, since I was a blusher, I found I got this like green concealer makeup stuff that's meant for like putting on a little pimple and stuff, but I just like my whole face. But that actually helped a bit because it helped to sort of counteract the red when I did blush. So another thing that really helped me in the moment when I was stressing out right then was focusing, not floating. So this was basically a sort of grounding technique where I would be in a supermarket, for example, and just be hearing everything around me, the people and the music, and freaking out, and then I would just try to focus on something. So I would say, hey Chris, shall we get some oranges? Or I would go look at the fruit and try to plan what I wanted for dinner or something, just to get me out of my little box I was trying to shove myself in. And this didn't always work, but in general it did make quite a big difference. It's just grounding myself, where am I, look around, focus on the here and now. So another big thing was during these times to think about the times I have succeeded, because often when you're freaking out you're telling yourself, oh, you're a freak, you're a loser, why can't you just be normal, this sort of stuff. But if you think about the times you've succeeded instead and being like, yeah, I did that, whether it was just paying at the supermarket or something bigger, it really does help. So I talked to Chris just this morning, asking him, looking back, what was most frustrating for him as my partner, and what was, what helped from his perspective. So he said that he found the whole anxiety thing very frustrating and limiting, because basically we couldn't go out anywhere, we couldn't enjoy things. If we did go out, it was just a big stress ball of like mess. And then like me making him do groceries by himself and stuff like that, which was a bit lame. So that, it wasn't, he said besides that it was okay, like I was fairly normal when it was just me and him, and like close friends, but it was more that we couldn't go and have an outside life. And he said ways to help me were to not enable me, not say, I'll go pay for you and stuff like that, but be really patient about it. Don't be stubborn and nasty. Accept that sometimes maybe you will have to pay, and maybe you're just having a really bad day and you've just got to give them a break. But you've got to be firm but not an asshole. So never make the person feel like they're weak or they're useless, because they're already telling themselves that. So that's not going to help at all. You've got to be really caring. This is why I think Chris was really huge in my recovery, because he's a really caring person. He is the nicest person I've ever met. Like, we regularly, so I always say, like, he's a way better person than me, and it's just the truth. He is such a lovely guy. And so you've got to be really patient and caring in this situation. Another thing that was really important was not to delegitimize my feelings, because while my fears seemed weird from the outside, they were very legitimate to me, and I was actually, really scared of things. So you've got to realize that, but then remind them that they're capable of getting through it and that they're strong. And that belief from him was really huge for me and really helped me at the times I was really struggling. So there were two big events that I could use for a very long time to say to myself, I did that, I can do anything I want now. And one of these big fears was walking down the aisle. Now, I got married young. I was 21 and Chris was 23. I think a lot of people think when you get married young, you don't really know what you're doing and you just want to get married for the fairy tale thing or something, I don't know. But I was terrified of getting married, so that was really not it. I was so scared of walking down the aisle. I was so scared of saying my vows. But I really wanted to be married to Chris because I love him to bits. And we've been married like almost 5 years now, and it's still one of the best things we've ever done in my life. But basically, it was fine. Like, I walked down the aisle, and yeah, I have this thing when I walk down aisles sometimes where I don't know whether to smile or laugh or cry, and I look like a complete idiot probably, but nothing, nothing bad happened. You meant to look like that on your wedding day. Our wedding was relatively basic in many ways. It represented the time in our life that we were at, and I loved it. Now, after that, I could say I did that. I walked down the freaking aisle and I said my vows to 100 people. In front, not to 100 people, in front of 100 people. Yeah, and so that was something I could hold on to and say, I could do that, I can now do this. Alright, so it took 2 years to get back to normal. So this wasn't an immediate thing, and it was terrifying. The first 6 months, probably after I learned this I've got to do everything I'm scared of thing, that was the hardest, because I was still desensitizing myself to all these things. It got better, progressively better after that, but there were a few triggers that took a long time to go away. But a really cool thing I got out of this experience was that I had a whole new mindset now. After for 2 years doing everything I didn't want to do, I had stopped being scared of the irrational things, and now I was opening myself up to things that would have previously scared me and I wouldn't have done. And one of these things was, I was on Facebook and I saw this thing advertised, and it's essentially like Big Brother. And it was called the Edge Social Games. It was with a radio station, and somehow managed to get myself away from Chris for 2 weeks in Auckland, which is 500 kilometers away from where I used to live. I now do live in Auckland. And yeah, it was like Big Brother, which, you know, there's video cameras everywhere. You're being judged, you are being talked about, you are doing all these crazy things. I went bungee jumping, I met celebrities, all kinds of really cool things happened. But I never ever would have done that if I hadn't even experienced this anxiety to start off with. Like, the anxiety was still relatively, it was going around then. It was getting better, but it still was there to some degree. But after the experience, like, holy crap, everything that had once been scary, I could just say, I did the social games, that was terrifying. So I'm fine now, like, I'm not bothered. Another thing that kind of helped after this whole experience was that I learned to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself when I did blush, because I couldn't be mad at myself every time. It wasn't going to work out. So I had to learn to forgive myself with that, and that helped with lots of different things as well. Like, I am someone who puts a lot of pressure on myself to do things right and get things done and be organised and stuff. But obviously it's not always going to work, and sometimes I'll mess up and sometimes I'll say stupid shit, but I forgive myself now, and I'm like, okay, alright, that didn't work out, and I'm sure I could do it better, but it's a lot better than it could have been and how it has been in the past. So that was really, really cool. Things stopped being scary. I would be at a cafe, this is 2 years later, so I've been facing things for a long time, but things stopped being scary. So I'd be at a cafe with my friends and chatting away and stuff, and then realised towards the end of this whole little outing that would have previously absolutely terrified me, you know? Small group, looking at me, talking to me, asking me questions, at a table, in public, lots of noise around me, lights, different setting, that would have terrified me, but it didn't anymore, and it was just really, really cool. Okay, so some of this is going to be kind of hard to say because it gets kind of emotional for me, but I still get nervous, I still say dumb shit, I still worry too much, I care a lot about a lot of things, but anxiety no longer dictates a single thing about my life. If I want to go somewhere, I go there. If I want to do something, I do it, and nothing is stopping me. I'm bolder, I'm braver, I will say what I think more. It changed me for the better. Like, I used to wish this never ever happened to me, but I am so glad it did, because it made me stronger. It also made me more understanding. I have much more empathy for people going through this sort of thing, because I get it and I have been there. I have never had depression, and obviously that makes my journey a bit easier because I didn't have to deal with 2 mental illnesses at the same time. And I'm quite happy to admit that I probably had an easier time than others, but it was still really hard. But I think having that understanding that this can happen, and it can happen to you, but you can get through it, has really changed how I see the rest of the world. Okay, I'm gonna say this without crying, because I actually get really emotional about this, because it was just so huge for me. So I guess you deserve to be happy. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, where you've been, what people have said about you. You deserve to be happy. Some people have mental illnesses so long that it shapes their very personality and who they are. They don't know who they are without their mental illness. You can still fight it. You can still find that person buried underneath. And I guarantee that person underneath will be a happier person, will be a more successful person in any way that you choose to measure success. And again, I don't want to like sit here and tell you how to live your life, but you only have one. It's cliche, but you have one life. Don't let anxiety stop you from living it. It's hard, it is so, so hard, and I'm sure that compared to other people, I have had it quite easy. But just don't give up on yourself. Like, think of everything else you have conquered in your life. If you had a rough childhood or adolescence or anything, you got through that. You are where you are now. You have survived that. You've got this. So that's about it really. There's not much else I can really add. Let me know what you think, if you've got any other tips about mental health stuff. Just remember, I'm a person. I don't tend to get upset by comments. I have been told to kill myself, that I'm hideous and all kinds of stuff in the last few weeks with Polish Mountain and chocolate nails and stuff, but it doesn't bother me at all. But this is much more personal, so just bear in mind I am a person who's reading these comments and blocking people. And I just hope that if this helps one person, it's totally worth it. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and thumbs up. Let me know what nail art you would like best, and if you want more personal videos I might make some, might not too, because, you know, personal is personal for a reason. Thank you for watching and I'll see you later. Once that's done, go back in with your dotting tool, but this time with bright orange, and make the markings on his cheeks. This time pull the tool down a bit so it makes a slight oval rather than just